Hi, this is Dan Benardot. Just like to go over a few items on the Nutritional Ergogenic Aids handouts that you have. So if you could pull those out while I go through this, it might be useful to you. Nutritional Ergogenic Aids are kind of interesting because there's so many athletes and people who are physically active who take them because they honestly believe that taking some of these things will give them a competitive advantage. And that's what ergogenic aids mean. Ergogenic aids, that phrase, are things that people take that will give them an ergogenesis or an improved athletic performance. So why is it that athletes take dietary supplements, which are nutritional ergogenic aids? Well, to produce a direct effect on exercise performance. They think that by taking some of these items, they'll do better. To compensate for a less than adequate diet or lifestyle. That's kind of an interesting thing because, if you analyze someone's diet and you can see that, in fact, let's say that their diet is a little low in iron, the logical response to that is not to take supplements. The logical response is to consume more foods that contain the missing nutrient. In this example, iron, because it's a far better way to take in the nutrient and you're much less likely to have side effects that could be negative. To meet the unusual nutrient demands induced by heavy exercise. To some extent this makes sense because people who do heavy exercise in fact do have some unusually heavy nutrient demands, but again, taking a vitamin or a mineral won't help satisfy the really high energy requirement that athletes have, and vitamins and minerals are useless if there are inadequate calories there for the athlete to work with. So really eating again is a far better solution because the best person on the team is using them. That's often the most important reason why some people take dietary supplements, because they put people up on a pedestal and they say, if they're doing it, they do well, then I'll do it as well. So let's think about what you need to think about to evaluate dietary supplements. First, what claims are being made about the product? Let's be logical about some of these things. You really think that by taking a vitamin you can run faster? Honestly, we have to look at what some of these claims really are. Is there a scientific base? I think one of the things I'd like to get across in this class is for you to understand what the nutrition and exercise physiology interface is so that you can make a logical decision yourself. Does it make sense that if someone were to take these things, that in fact they would get an ergogenic benefit? What are the ingredients? What's in them? Is there anything in there that's potentially harmful? Also, again, very important. Is there evidence that it works? Is it legal? Also very important. Does it contain substances banned by athletic organizations? In a recent study that was funded by the International Olympic Committee, and it was performed by Ron Mon, who's a very well-known nutrition scientist working out of Scotland, they took all of the common supplements and ergogenic aids that athletes take, and they found that 25% of them contain illegal substances in them that are not listed on the label. So, some of these illegal substances are actually steroids. So an athlete takes these and say, wow, these vitamins are really good, they really work. But it's a misattribution of what really is working. It's a real problem. And is it safe? Most of these things have zero studies to determine whether or not long-term intake is safe. There's some recent evidence to suggest that, for instance, creatine monohydrate, which is a very commonly taken supplement, if you take it a long time, your cells forget how to make it, because every lean cell in your body has the capacity to make creatine monohydrate, but if creatine, so that you can make creatine phosphate. But if you take it as a supplement, then you downregulate your cellular capacity to make it, your cells forget to make it, and now you're stuck taking the supplement, a real problem. And of course, what's the cost? Some of these things are really interesting. They charge many dollars to give you a pill of amino acids, and actually you'd get more amino acids by having one bite of a chicken leg, which would cost pennies. So, you have to think a little bit about what people are actually selling you. And remember what truly works. What really truly works is eating the right amount of calories at the right time and distributing the nutrients well enough so that you can expose your tissues to everything that they need. Eating food, if you do it correctly, works far better than taking individual supplements or ergogenic aids. There are quite a few common dietary supplements or aids that are used by athletes. And here's a list of them here. Protein powders and amino acids are extremely popular. Ephedra, mahuang is also popular. Ginseng, glutamine, creatine. All of these things very popular. Some of them are taken in megadoses, and we're getting increasing evidence to suggest that megadoses of vitamins and minerals not only don't work, but they're actually harmful. A recent study showed that women who chronically took multivitamin supplements were at higher risk of early mortality than women who didn't take them. So, there are some real issues here that I think we have to be a little bit careful of. And one of the problems, of course, is that people downregulate the sensitivity that their tissues have to vitamins. So, the requirement for vitamin is in the neighborhood of 60 milligrams. Well, you'd be hard-pressed to find a supplement that contains less than 500 milligrams of vitamin C. So if you keep hammering your tissues with that dose, which is way beyond what tissues can actually use, you get a certain level of tissue insensitivity, which makes it harder for you to get the vitamin C into the tissues when you really need to. So you're kind of stuck taking higher and higher doses, and then you can get sick from all of this excess amount. So, there are some things which are engineered metabolic byproducts of essential nutrients to try to shortcut metabolic pathways. Here's an example of some of them. And then there are some nutrients which are considered non-essential, because if we have the essential nutrients, we can actually make these in our cells, and you can help theoretically with some metabolic processes by taking them. So, what follows in some of these slides is how some of these things work. Glycerol, by the way, is part of the triglyceride molecule, which is, when you eat fats, most fats are in triglyceride form. And glycerol is the 3-carbon unit that holds together 3 fatty acids to get a triglyceride. We'll discuss more of that later. But glycerol by itself, if you put it in water, instead of holding fatty acids, actually holds water. So it's a very powerful humectant. And for many years, endurance athletes on hot and humid days would consume glycerated water because it would help them store a lot more water in their bodies so they could keep their sweat rates up and keep going faster longer without reaching a critical dehydration threshold, which would cause them to stop performing. But now glycerol is considered a banned substance, so that can no longer be used, even though it's a common component of food. It's a simple lipid, simple fat, but it's kind of unique in that it's the only simple lipid in human nutrition that's actually metabolized like a carbohydrate. And then, there are phytochemicals, which are kind of interesting, which are plant extracts, which plants hold in extremely small amounts, but they're concentrated as they're sold, and so you get much higher dosages of them than you would if you were to actually eat the food. The question is, can you actually use these higher dosages? And then, people play with other things. Of course, alcohol, is not a good thing to have if you want physical performance. It actually causes really big problems with B vitamin metabolism. But there's some pretty good studies to suggest that having a little bit of caffeine is actually a pretty interesting ergogenic aid, because it helps to reduce mental fatigue, keeps you alert at the end of the race when people tend to get tired. And so it has some usefulness in keeping people, their head in the game, so that they understand when they can pass somebody and go a little bit faster, so they're a little bit more logical. But, caffeine's a problem because people have caffeine all the time, and you get a reduced dose effect the more you have. So the more you have, the more you have to get a pharmacological effect. And if you have that much when you're racing, you dramatically increase the chance that you'll get dehydrated, because it's a diuretic if you have it in really, really high amounts. So, let's think about what nutritional ergogenic aids can do. They can increase the energy supply of the muscle. They can help in energy releasing metabolic processes in the muscle. L-carnitine is like that. It migrates fats into the mitochondria inside the cell. Well, we make our own L-carnitine. People think that if they take it, somehow it's useful. There's little evidence to suggest that. Iron is important for oxygen delivery into working tissues. Well, if your iron status is normal, it doesn't do any good to have more. More than enough is not better than enough. Coenzyme Q10 is used to increase oxygen utilization of the muscle, but you don't need more than your body already has, and there's little evidence to suggest that it's useful. And something like bicarbonate or sodium bicarbonate, this Na here stands for sodium, is used a lot by people who are sprinters, which is a very lactate-inducing activity. And bicarbonate, sodium bicarbonate, is a buffer. But there's pretty good evidence to suggest that what really the sodium bicarbonate is doing, it's the sodium that's useful, not the buffering part of the bicarbonate. Sodium increases blood volume, and so you can put the lactate into a larger pool without affecting the pH as much. So it's a little bit like, if you have a fixed amount of acid and you put it in a small glass, then that acid is likely to acidify that small glass more than if you put that same amount of acid in a big glass. You'd have a less pH effect. And that's what happens if you have some sodium. You enlarge the blood volume so you can dilute the acidity which is going into it so your cells can keep on working. So, one way to think about this is that the solution to pollution is dilution. So the more you can maintain your blood volume, the better when you're physically active. And when you have sodium, that helps regardless of what form it's in. And choline, is part of acetylcholine, and it helps in the neural control of muscle contraction. So I'll let you look at these following slides on your own. It just summarizes some of the ergogenic aids, and we'll have a little discussion on them tomorrow if you'd like, when we get together for our discussion on Thursday. If you have questions about it, again, the discussion's optional. It's just if you want to have a little chat with me, we can do that. So look forward to having a discussion with you if you're with us tomorrow, and we can, if you want to have more, we'll schedule some more discussions as well. Have a great day.